Okay, let's dive into this fascinating explainer. Today, we're going to peel back the layers of a truly remarkable 7th century text to uncover what is, effectively, a profound map of human consciousness. We're exploring Surah An-Nur, the 24th chapter of the Qur'an, commonly known as the Chapter of Light. But we aren't just skimming the surface here. We are journeying from some very grounded practical, societal rules all the way into the deepest depths of esoteric, mystical philosophy. It's quite a ride. We're starting our journey right here with this incredibly hard-hitting quote from Islamic scholar Ismail Kamdar. How quick are we to spread slander today? It's such a powerful anchor, right? Because it connects the ancient origins of this text directly to our modern internet era. You know, a culture that is often completely driven by gossip, rumors, and unverified information. And as we're about to see, the foundation of this deeply mystical chapter was actually laid in response to that exact human flaw. So here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the context, rules, and slander. Second, the verse of light. Third, 3 layers of meaning. Fourth, conditions for true understanding. And finally, decoding the divine metaphor. All right, part 1, context, rules, and slander, the practical foundations of Surah An-Nur. To really get this text, we have to first ground ourselves in the actual human drama that sparked its revelation back in the city of Medina. It's fascinating because this highly mystical chapter, it actually starts as a very practical social framework. As the source material highlights, Surah An-Nur was revealed in response to a massive public scandal. Hypocrites within the community had spread malicious slander against the innocent wife of the Prophet Muhammad. In response, the text doesn't just clear her name, it lays down strict social rules. It established protocols for verifying information, created some early privacy laws, and advised people to lower their gaze and completely abstain from gossip. Fundamentally, it's all about protecting the community from the destructive evil of slander. Moving on to part 2, the verse of light, a poetic shift in the Qur'an. Nestled right in the middle of those everyday societal rules, we hit verse 35, the verse of light. And suddenly the text just completely shifts from the physical world into the purely spiritual. Comparing these two modern translations really highlights the incredible difficulty and the beauty of capturing divine metaphors in human language. Just look at the nuances here. On the left, Sami Mahdi translates the imagery as a glittering planet. On the right, Ala Yunal interprets it as a pearly star. They're both trying to describe a niche, containing a lamp, encased in glass, fueled by a blessed olive tree. It is an incredibly luminous poetic passage, and it's captivated philosophers for centuries, precisely because it demands we look way past the literal words. That brings us to part 3, 3 layers of meaning, Mulla Sadra's metaphysical cosmos. To truly grasp this poetry, we're turning to the brilliant 17th century transcendent philosopher Mulla Sadra. He actually wrote an entire hermeneutic text entirely dedicated to decoding this single verse. He argues that the Quran is structured exactly like the universe and exactly like the human mind. Sadra maps this all out in 3 tiers. At the lowest level, you have the physical, sensory world, which perfectly corresponds to literal language. The middle level is the imaginary or symbolic realm, which corresponds to our interior senses. But the highest level, that's the world of intellect, the purely spiritual, cognitive realm. Sadra insists you absolutely cannot read the verse of light just on that lowest literal level. You really have to ascend through these tiers.
Part 4, conditions for true understanding, preparing the mind for the esoteric.
Now, before we can climb that ladder and decode those symbols, Sadra warns that purely academic study just isn't enough to understand divine light. He calls the required preparation existential recitation. First up, you have to purify your heart from malicious sins. Remember those social rules against slander we talked about? That's step 1. Second, you must silence the inner chattering of your ego so your mind is fully attentive. And third, you have to engage in deep reflection, actively recognizing a divine presence as you read. By taking these specific steps, the reader enters a state of deep, receptive mindfulness. To actually achieve this mindfulness, Sadra outlines specific philosophical prerequisites. Basically, you have to remove what he calls veils. We're talking about existential flaws like jealousy and pride. Those will completely block your understanding. So will blind conformity, just believing what you're told without any real reflection. Surprisingly, he also criticizes scholars who spend all their energy solely on grammar and literalism. If you arrogantly adhere only to the literal meaning, Sadra says you're basically treating your mind like an unpolished mirror. You have to strip away these internal veils if you ever hope to clearly reflect the truth. And finally, part 5, decoding the divine metaphor, translating the symbols of the soul. Okay, so now that the mirror of the mind is polished, let's do exactly what Mulla Sadra did. Let's peel back the final layer and translate these famous metaphors. Looking at the actual historical text from his hermeneutics, it is amazing to see how meticulously he breaks down every single word. He takes the concepts of the niche, the lamp, and the glass, and assigns them directly to the spiritual anatomy of the human being. Let's start with the big one, the most important definition here. Light. Now, for Sadra, light isn't just physical brightness or photons from the sun. Light is existence itself. It's the ultimate reality that brings things from non-existence into being. It is the divine illuminator. To have light is quite simply to exist. Next up is the niche. In the verse, the light is placed within a niche, kind of like a small hollow in a wall. Sadra translates this as the physical human breast. It represents the bodily foundation of our human existence. It's the physical container that holds our spiritual reality and the spiritual stations that are awakened within us.
Inside that physical niche is the glass. This transparent glass, Sadra explains, is your psychic spirit or your heart. Just like glass, it's fine, transparent, and luminescent. It acts as a protective layer, really, filtering and harboring that inner illumination and making it shine outward like a beautiful glittering star.
And nestled safely inside that glass is the lamp. The lamp is the actual spark. It is the light of guidance, the divine secret, and the word of God that is kindled within the absolute innermost center of your soul. But hey, a lamp needs fuel, right? Well, Sadra explains that this lamp is fueled by an oil representing pure divine emanation. The verse describes it coming from a blessed olive tree that belongs neither to the east nor the west. Sadra tells us this means the fuel of the soul is totally unbound by physical directions or earthly geography. It is purely spiritual, divine assistance that ignites the heart. And when all of this perfectly aligns, the verse gives us the incredibly famous phrase, light upon light. Sadra explains that this is really the ultimate goal of the human journey. It's what happens when the pure inner light of your own human intellect successfully joins with the external light of divine revelation. The illumination is multiplied. It's a breathtaking synthesis where your consciousness and divine existence become perfectly unified.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought directly inspired by Mulla Sadra. We started with the very practical dangers of societal slander and ended up in the deepest realms of spiritual illumination. The journey between those 2 points requires a clear mind and a pure heart. So reflect on the journey we've taken today, look inward, and ask yourself, what veils, what ego, what gossip, what rigid thinking might be hiding the light within your own reflection?